So thanks for inviting for this talk, Dr. Desai. And the way I see this topic, it's also closely related to the topic or the theme of the agenda today. Efficiency, as we say, opportunities for efficiency, they also drive the cost. There are ways and means to drive the cost. So in some ways there is a linkage there. The way I have structured it, I will present 3 topics on how digitalizing healthcare or leveraging healthcare, digital part of the healthcare is resulting into addressing some of the key challenges that the healthcare faces. But before I jump into that part, let me take you through one market survey that we recently did. We surveyed somewhere around 90 C-level and senior management healthcare professionals. And what we see there, we asked them that from a challenge perspective, what are the key challenges that they see in them delivering the healthcare? And the challenges are listed out there. What we said that whether they are significantly high challenge, that means it could be 4, or it could be not a challenge at all, which could be -4. And you can obviously see that there's nothing there which is not challenging. So that's the first point, that every aspect of the questionnaire was quite a challenge for them. Within that, one can only argue some things were more challenging, some things were less challenging. That's the only difference that comes out of that. If you see what is the content of that, then key content which is more relevant for our talk today would be how they leverage digitalization. So thanks to all the innovators who came and presented before me in the panel, digitalizing as a buzzword is very well entrenched in the mindset. And now they have started thinking about how do I really leverage it for improving the healthcare. Second thing was how can I drive clinical excellence, because that is becoming more important. This is a challenge for them. It's not a question how I improve, it's a challenge right now. And third one is though fifth on the line, but it is more like getting human resources. So we'll try to see. The purpose I have got it here is that we will be referring to this again as we go through the presentation. Second set of questions is, forget everything in the past. What you think parameters would be significant for success factors for you to be successful in the game? So again, same set of probably the responses were biased because of the nature of the questions. That could be possible. But important point is to note that there is nothing which is not significant, and everything is highly significant or moderately significant as a success factor. If you see the key topics coming out of it, which is 1, 2, and 3, patient experience or patient engagement is certainly the very, very relevant topic which is becoming a buzzword. Because how to get patients, how to keep patients, how to improve the outcomes for the patients, so that everything has to become eventually patient-centric. And that is where the focus is going. Second one is driving clinical efficiencies. Again, the landscape of payer and the deliverer is changing, now changing rather fast. Pay for procedure is changing to pay for outcomes, and those topics are driving how to get a better clinical efficiencies with the same setup that they have. And third one is challenge they depicted was having staff which are trained or training the staff. So having said this background, I will refer to 3 data points and try to take you through the challenge of that point, what solutions are there from, let's say, Siemens Healthineers side of it. Let me be very candid and say that the perspective which I present would be from Siemens Healthineers side. The credit goes due to a lot of other players in the market who are doing their bit extremely well in trying to solve similar and more challenges. So, but for this presentation, I will be talking about what we are doing in particular. So first example is a very well-known scenario, though the data point represented here is from NHS, but I could name any country here and this scenario would be true. Rather for India, the gap between the resources that we have and the requirement that is coming out is going to be even far, far wider for India. Because we are not stagnant in healthcare, we are just starting our journey in healthcare, we have to grow a lot, so that gap is very high. So the question is, when the resources or getting trained resources is so difficult, how do we handle the challenge of some of those functions where we really require trained manpower or trained resources? They are hard to get. So we took one topic which was technologist. In the radiology environment, technologist plays a very key role. And we thought that what if we could reduce the need for such a technologist in radiology by 1/3. Let's say, for example, where it comes from is, unlike other specialties, where the patient and the specialist or physician's interaction is direct, whether it is a surgeon, whether it is a physician, whether it is any other modality, in diagnostics, and especially in radiology diagnostics and in vitro diagnostics, the lab diagnostics, there is an intermediary called technologist, and he plays a critical role in trying to sort of acquire the data in a way which the radiologist will be comfortable and can evaluate by a good decision. So he plays a very, very important role, and the expertise therein required is pretty, pretty high. So we came out with the concept of having a virtual cockpit, or we call it single virtual cockpit. You could call it as a virtual operation center, where one person can control 3 devices irrespective of its location. These devices, for all practical purposes, one could be in Chandigarh, second could be in Jamshedpur, third could be in Uzbekistan or anywhere. So as long as they are on the network, they could control it, drive it, and let's say operate the system. So what happens as a result? As a result, the routine procedures where people need some hand-holding, if there are new technologies at the site, at the remote site, they can be handled for routine procedures very well through this mechanism. Complex procedures, that means, let's say, for example, cardiac CT or cardiac MRI or diffusion tensor imaging in MRI, this type of complex procedures which are not only complex but also they are very rare, which does not allow the expertise to be built up at one particular place. And that's where the having such a centralized resource can create a super specialist to handle such a case and deliver the results irrespective of where the center is. It also allows this type of solution also allows temporary staff shortages. If there are certainly staff on leave, all those can be managed. And training or upskilling of the remote staffs can also be handled via such a type of solution. So it has multiple dimensions. Just to give you a case in point, this is a case in Brazil, and this is where this is a diagnostic center set up. They have more than 100 diagnostic centers all over the Brazil. And their problems, if you read, they are typical problems that we see day in, day out in our country also, like staff shortages, particularly in the rural area, limited portfolio in many locations. They were not doing that many number of cases. The way to do the cases, which is very important in radiology, that is called the protocol, are non-standardized, also resulting in suboptimal reports or suboptimal quality of the work. Now they have set up a centralized facility where this is a typical picture of that, where the specialists, technologists are sitting there and manning all the 100 remote sites. So typically what is there right now is more than almost 70 equipments are connected, and they are driving more than 55,000 scans every month. More important, this is the result. The result is that the rescans, because of wrong type of image acquisition or protocol usage or whatever, has dropped to less than 1%, and the scans have become 33% faster, which for a private diagnostic center is pure opportunity for money. So this is one case in point. What are areas of tick marks such a solution? We can see that definitely patient experience is high because it is not turned away. He is handled in a shorter span of time. Staff training, all the right tick marks that we talked about. 3 topics of key challenges and 3 topics of success factors for tomorrow. Many of those are getting addressed. Now, moving to the second part. Reading this statement, I'm sure many of, almost all of us sitting here would sort of agree with the statement. Yeah. Do you agree with the statement? Yeah. And there are differences, and these differences, if I keep aside the real different answers coming because of the real experience and expertise of the doctor, of the physician, we can keep that as a separate, because that is the real thing that we want. What we don't want, rather, is the responses or answers coming from a less experienced level, for less diligent work, or less comprehensive data points taken into account. And if the answers we get are different, then it puts the patient care on a different pathway. So here, coming specifically to the radiology, the challenge is even bigger, and we should understand their operating environment. And if you see the radiologist operating environment, it is pretty scary. The CT MRI scans are growing exponentially, while the availability of the radiologists are far low. And that brings a big burden of them having to work more, spend less time to interpret, leading to errors. And when I talk about errors, the study says that 50% of less reading time can contribute to 17% of errors in diagnosis. And 17%, if 17% you think is small, it is not. It's a big element. Some retrospective studies have put it up to 30% errors. And we can just imagine what it does to the patient care. So everyone has talked about artificial intelligence in the last panel, so now it's my turn also to talk about it. So we can talk about something which is a companion to the radiologist. We call it as a RAD companion. And this companion is the one who does not miss any obvious data points that needs to be looked into. This companion is AI based, and hence it has a wide repository of information, curated information, running into millions and millions of studies, which it has. And if it is an aid, it's a companion, it can then give a formatted analysis and reporting for eventually the radiologist to look and report on. So I'll spend a couple of minutes on that. So what essentially it does, it is an automated reading and reporting workflow. It's automated. It is not autonomous. Let me underline that. Autonomous would be that it takes a decision on its own, though it is capable of, but we don't want it to be autonomous. So it is, we call it as being assisted reporting. And it takes data from any CTs, it applies the algorithms, AI-based algorithms. Beautiful thing is, if you go to probably this is a very common finding everyone would be able to relate to, that if you go with a particular prescription to a radiologist, that let's look at the city for a lung nodule, for example, then the natural tendency of the radiologist is to see the data sets which have come in front of him, more from that perspective, maybe going into lymph nodes and seeing the additional lymph node information and blah blah blah. Sometimes incidental findings do come in, which are not the original signs with which the patient went. But as an AI solution, it looks into all aspects of for example, this is a chest example, so it looks at all aspects of the investigation which are possible in that area. So, big thing about such a solution, AI-based solution, could be not missing abnormalities, and including identifying incidental findings which otherwise would have gone missed, and marking it for highlighting it, marking it, measuring it, all those other tasks which normally has to be done, and presenting it in a very consistent reporting structure back to the radiologist. And to one of the points which was made by one question, that using the biomarker, whether it is radiology based or radiomics or genomics, biomarkers is also one step which is happening. Just so that everyone understands the complexity, I have listed only 10 things that one needs to look. There are many more things that one needs to look into chest X-ray, and each has 4 to 5 different levels of differentiation, whether it is emphysema, which type, where it is. Each of these parameters, there are many things to be looked into, and practically it is impossible for any physician, any radiologist to be doing this on each and every case. So that is the complexity, and that's the challenge that comes, and that's where the solutions of technology can bring in reprieve, that can bring in consistency and assist. So which areas it tick marks? Quite a substantial number. Clinical excellence, driving clinical efficiencies, so that radiologists can really report on more cases, so on and so forth. Third thing, or before going to the third thing, we saw 2 examples. One was for technologists and one was for radiologists. There is a very common element which I want to touch on this. Both the solutions are trying to drive or remove the subjectivity in the process of handling the patient. Whether it is technologist, one technologist does things different from other technologists. Radiologist can do sometimes fine reporting, sometimes too much loaded, it goes off. Yeah? This is one very important thing, because we have to understand from a very different perspective. This differences in way the patient is handled introduces the element of variations, and these are unwarranted variations. There could be another 2 elements of the unwarranted variations also, because the patient himself could be, one is thick, obese, and one is thin, and those are patient brought in variations in the diagnosis, which leads to a different diagnosis, and there could be technology driven variations also. If the technology is not calibrated, the difference between one equipment to another equipment can also bring in variations. But where the variation is an issue is here. The variations at the diagnostic levels puts the patient on a totally different pathway for treatment. And the fallout of this is cost. It can be very expensive. The patient is pushed on those pathways, sometimes deliberately or sometimes unintendedly. But bigger point getting affected is the outcome, patient outcome, because you will never get a right patient outcome if the patient is not on the right clinical pathway. So that's where both the solutions also tie into and help. So this makes me move to my third point, and the third point is, I think we have talked more about clinical. We can go into non-clinical topic as well, and this is a scenario which probably everyone in the hospital environment would be understanding better, that emergency departments are becoming increasingly busier, and they are turning over the patients faster. There are a lot of disruptions which are caused in the OR, and they can be avoided, and they take the productivity or the efficiency out of the OR out. One of the surveys done said that either the 23% of the respondents either had already remodeled their department in past 24 months, they had remodeled their emergency department totally, or equally number of people were going to remodel their emergency department because the way the patient flow or number of patients they are seeing is increasing. So, from a non-clinical side, one of the assets which a healthcare provider has, which is extremely inflexible, would be what? Most of other assets are flexible. Assets you can buy and sell, or you can change it over to new human resources you can add. But once the hospital is paid, the infrastructure is a very, very inflexible asset. And hence, how to future-proof your hospital? And what are the solutions are possible to make sure that you are designing or setting up a hospital which can last for longer cycles, yeah, and can take care of the variations. So the concept here is what we will call as the workflow, 4D workflow simulation. The concept here is that what if the whole department of yours, well, it doesn't matter which department, it could be emergency department, it could be a complete neuro workflow department, cardiac workflow department, or whatever. If you can model it exactly as you have laid out in a digital space, if you can, that's one side, you can model all the assets in that, you can model all the manpower inside. That means your physicians, your receptionists, your paramedic staffs, whoever are working there, if you could model that. If you can, in addition to that, model your work times, let's say morning 9 or 8 to 6, you can model the different patient peaking at different times, if you can model that. If you can also model that, what type of patients I will be seeing, more of a brain patients, more of a cardiac patients, or whatever be it, if you can model that, then I would, then what is possible is, if you model that, and then you run the whole software, you set your KPIs, and with those KPIs you can then monitor and see how those KPIs are shaping up when you're doing the simulation of exactly what you wanted to do. And if your KPIs are getting challenged or not challenged, or you are still under KPI. Added to this, you can build scenarios. What if my 30% patient load improves by 30%, footfalls improve by 30%? What are the stress points it can mean? If my staff is on leave, 50% of the staff on leave, what can happen in that scenario? So all those modeling one can bring in, and thereby you can then take a decision on where the false walls can be there, or whatever be your decisions to incorporate all. So here you are seeing the KPIs being referred to. So invariably we have done many examples on that, and invariably cycle time, walkway, how many steps patient has to walk, all those saw a significant reduction to a extent of 10 to 30%, and utilization went up. So this is where my 3 examples end. I will just say that again, in this case, again all the right points are ticked off. In summary, we see definitely that we have to agree, and we see that the healthcare providers are facing significant challenges. Everyone is constrained to do more with less. The examples that we saw, virtual command center or artificial intelligence based RAD companion, are just a few examples. Once again, a lot of companies are doing a lot of nice work on that. And digitalizing healthcare is not an option, it's a must, because that's the only way we can extract efficiencies out of the processes, deliver better patient experiences, and finally improve the clinical outcomes. Thank you so much.